All right, guys. So in this module, we're going to learn all about how to build your very own RESTful API. Now, in previous modules, we've seen and used APIs that other people have created, and we've also started to build up our server to allow GET requests and POST requests. But in this module, we're going to do it from beginning to end, and we're going to build our very own complete RESTful API. Now, the first question you might have is, what exactly does REST mean? And what does it mean to make an API RESTful, right? Well, REST is not lazing on the couch and watching Netflix, but it actually stands for Representational State Transfer, which is quite a mouthful, but in order to understand it, we have to backtrace a little bit and we have to go back to that classic architecture that we've already looked at, which is the client and server architecture. And this is the architecture that the entire internet is pretty much built on. So let's just review it quickly. So the client makes a request to the server. So what exactly is the client? Well, if we were in a restaurant, the client would be, well, the client who's paying for the meal, right? And the server would be the server staff at the restaurant. So when our client makes a request, say, I'd like a pizza, please, then the server has to check to see if this is something that the restaurant can fulfill. And if so, he will smile graciously at you and fulfill that request. But if the client requested something that they didn't have, for example, a sausage, and it's not on the menu, then the server would give you an error code, a classic one, of course, being 404, which is resource doesn't exist. We don't stock sausages. Now, when the client makes that request to the server, classically on the internet, this is done through a HTTP request, Hypertext Transfer Protocol request. And the analogy for this is it's kind of like the language that you're using to make the request. Say you're saying, I want a pizza, right? And if you're in France, you would have to say that in French. Although I'm not sure what you're doing eating pizzas in France, but the server would be able to understand your request and give you back the correct result. Now, the thing you have to remember is that HTTP, this Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is not the only language that servers can speak, right? Another one that you might have heard of is, for example, the FTP request, which is the File Transfer Protocol request. So if you use the wrong language, you might not get back the result that you're looking for. So for example, if a server speaks French in France and you try to speak to him in Italian, that probably won't work. So we have to make sure we've got the right language for making our request. Now, at this point, some students might say, well, what about that other thing, that HTTPS request? What does that S stand for, and is it a different language? Well, HTTPS stands for HTTP Secure Request. So remember that all your requests and responses are going across the internet and can be potentially tapped in by lots of people. So if you wanted to make it secure, so you don't want to be on a website entering your car details and it's just going through, a bog standard HTTP request, because somebody might hijack that along the way and that's not very secure. So we can also use cryptography and encrypt our requests. So if anybody does intercept the request, they won't be able to know what it says. Now, this is kind of equivalent to having like a secret code language. For example, if both you and your waiter speak Klingon, then you could communicate securely. And it doesn't matter if you're overheard in the restaurant, because nobody else will be able to understand what you're saying other than yourself and your waiter. Now, let's say that the client has successfully made the request to the server. And this is something that the server can serve up, so it sees it as a valid request instead of a 404. Then in this case, the server should respond with the result of what it is that you requested. So in the restaurant, that might be your pizza. But on the internet, that might be the web page HTML or resources such as images or data. Now, in order to give us that result, the server might do one of two things. It might do some computation, run some code to work out the result that you need. For example, if our server was a simple calculator web application, Or the server might need to communicate with our database in order to grab the relevant pieces of data that the client requested. So depending on what kind of request that the client made, what kind of resource they wanted, the server might do one or both of these things. So we've seen that the client has to talk to the server using an HTTP request, a specific language that the server can understand. But also, there's only a certain amount of things that the server can do, right? Say at a restaurant, you would have a menu of items that this particular restaurant would serve. And it's exactly the same on the internet. The server will have a whole bunch of APIs, which are services that it can expose for clients to be able to tap into. And so when we're building an API, we're kind of like building the menu of things that our server can respond to when a client makes a request. So now that we understand all three components, what does it mean to make our API RESTful? Well, REST is essentially just an architectural style. So just as you have different buildings that have different architectural styles, for example, the Baroque architectural style with the nice arches, or other buildings might be built in the Gothic architectural style with flying buttresses and these imposing beams. And my favorite, the neoclassical, have these incredibly geometric shapes and columns that really remind you of old Greek architecture. So these are architectural styles for designing buildings. Well, REST is an architectural style for designing APIs, and it's definitely not the only architectural style. So the other really popular one before REST became the dominant style was SOAP. And there's also GraphQL or Falcor, and there's a lot of other architectural styles. But the gold standard for web APIs is REST. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And REST actually came about really quite recently as a part of this guy's PhD. This is Roy Fielding. And he did his PhD in the University of California. And as a part of his doctorate, he researched and came up with this architectural style that we now call REST. And it proposes a set of rules that web developers could follow when they're building their APIs. And he came up with this idea that all websites across the web would use the same structure for building their APIs. I mean, imagine if you had a whole street and all their buildings had the same layout. For example, the toilets for men and women are always on the same floors in the same positions, then you would never get into a situation where you're trying to find the toilet. So my personal struggles aside, essentially in his PhD, he proposed that the internet could do the same. If every web API was built using the same common guiding principles, then it would be so easy for everybody to work together and be able to use different APIs quickly, easily, and efficiently. So pretty neat for a PhD project, right? There's definitely some PhD projects that are a lot worse, like the guy who had to look into the propulsion parameters of penguin poop. But maybe if you really like penguins, that's okay. So how exactly do we make our API RESTful? Well, there's a lot of rules that an API has to follow to be RESTful. And just as you have rules that you might follow at your workplace or your school, you might have a uniform, no shorts, no singlets, don't smoke in the building. You will also have a whole bunch of rules for making an API RESTful. But the two most important ones are using the HTTP request verbs, so using that HTTP request language, and also to use a specific pattern of routes and endpoint URLs. And these two things are probably the most important parts of making your API RESTful. And we're going to look at each of them in detail. So first, what exactly are the HTTP verbs? Well, you've already seen some of them. First is get, then there's post, put, and patch. Patch came relatively recently in 2010, and it was added to the HTTP request language essentially very recently. But it's kind of a neat twist on how we update data, and we're going to look at that in a little bit as well. And finally, you've got delete. So these are the 5 HTTP verbs that you should be using in order to make your API RESTful. And you might realize that they have a lot of similarities to something that we covered previously in the database module, which is when we looked into CRUD, right? Create, read, update, and delete. So we're going to look at our REST HTTP request verbs alongside our database CRUD functions, and we're going to see how each of these verbs work in practice. So now that we've looked at the HTTP request verbs and we can see how they're used, the next thing to talk about is the specific pattern of routes and endpoints that you have to use in order to make your API RESTful. So just as when you go on a safari, there are different routes that you would use to reach, say, the elephant area or the camels or the hippos, in our server, we can specify specific routes or URLs in order to access certain resources. So you might have, www.google.com/elephants, then that would bring up all of the elephants, and /camels would be for the camels and hippos. So these are routes, and we've already used routes before in our server code. But in order for our API to be RESTful, we have to have a specific pattern of endpoints and routes. So for example, if our API was the Wikipedia API, right? And in our database, we had a whole bunch of articles. Now the route for /articles applies to all of the articles. Now, if we created a route for articles, then when a client makes a GET request to /articles, it should fetch all of the articles. And when they make a POST request to the /articles route, then it should create a single new article and add it to our database of articles. And when we make a delete request to /articles, then it would delete all the articles in our database. But RESTful routing also has rules for individual resources. So within all of the articles, we will have specific articles, right? Say we had an article on Jack Bauer, then if the client was targeting /articles /Jack Bauer, then if they made a GET request, that would fetch the specific article on Jack Bauer from our database. And you can also use put and patch to update that specific article on Jack Bauer, and you can delete the specific article as well. Now, a little bit later on, when we create all of these routes using the HTTP verbs, it's going to be a lot more clear how each of these works. But for now, I just want you to get an overview of what RESTful routing actually looks like before we get started. So now that we've seen how HTTP request verbs work and the pattern of routes that make your API RESTful, the next step is to get started and actually build our very own API. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson. So what is the difference between put and patch? Well, here's a good analogy. Recently, I went onto Amazon and I found a really nice looking bicycle. And because I really wanted to poison my lungs by exercising around London, I clicked on the Buy Now button. So there I was, super happy, super excited for my bicycle to arrive. And then on the day of arrival, I opened up that box and my bicycle was really messed up. The whole front wheel was broken. So I'm not really sure what happened at the Amazon warehouse, but I got in touch with them and I wanted to try and figure out how we can solve this problem. So there were two ways that they could fix this problem. Option one was they send me an entire new bike. So this is the equivalent of put. You're updating your database by sending an entire entry to replace the previous one. Now, the other option Amazon offered was for them to simply send me a new tire. That was the only thing that was broken. The rest of the bike was fine. And in order to save the world from carbon emissions, shipping a wheel is much better than shipping an entire bicycle. And this is the same as patch. So when you're sending a patch request to the server, you're only sending the piece of data that needs to be updated. Instead of the entire entry that will be replaced, you're simply just updating the thing that needs to be updated. So when we see this in practice, I want you to think back to this bicycle analogy, and maybe it'll help you try and understand the difference between these two words.